Peter, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. Peter's here.
You ready?
So,
He's the guy in charge.
Oh, okay, I
yeah,
guess.
we're good.
Okay.
We're live.
Whenever you want to start.
Okay. Okay, so, I guess I'm the chair tonight. It's 7:01 PM, and I call the July 19th, 2022 special meeting, the Franklin County Planning Commission meeting to order. Before we get into the meeting, I'll turn things over to staff to discuss meeting format.
First off, just basically what happened on July 5th, we had a technical difficulties that did not allow us to have audio, and therefore we had to cancel the meeting. So this meeting is a reiteration of that. All the agenda items and everything are the same as that last meeting. Tonight's meeting will be conducted through a hybrid in-person online meeting platform. Should an individual planning commissioner become unexpectedly disconnected, please rejoin the meeting at your first opportunity. The record will reflect your attendance. The meeting will be paused for up to 10 minutes to address technical difficulties. If they cannot be resolved within 10 minutes, then the meeting will proceed so long as a quorum of planning commissioners are present. For those attending via phone, please mute your phone when not speaking. If you wish to comment or need clarification on a public hearing item, please send us an email at planninginquiry, all one word, at Franklin County WA, again, all one word, .gov, before the public comment period closes. Once public comment period has closed on said item, comments will not be included as part of the discussion. To those in attendance, please remember to speak into the microphone when addressing staff for public comments / testimonies.
Okay, thank you. Derek, will planning staff please call roll and announce whether or not we have a quorum?
Mike Corrales. Mike Vincent.
Here.
Lade Lowe. Here. Melinda Didier. Peter Harpster.
Here.
Manny Gutierrez.
Here.
Stacy Knifton.
Here.
Mr. Chair, we do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Will staff in attendance please introduce yourselves?
Derek Broughton, Director of Planning and Building.
Ryan Nelson, Planner 1.
Aaron Gunderson, Planner 1.
Thank you. I'll now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
We also have Jennifer Johnson on the line.
Oh, okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
To the
United
flag
States
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's always weird when people call it. We used to try to do that virtually. That was weird.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, so moved by Stacy, Commissioner Knifton, and seconded by Commissioner Lowe. Also approval of minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the June,
Did you vote?
was that June 7th?
I heard a first and a second, but I didn't hear a
we
call
didn't
for a
get it.
vote.
We didn't call for a vote, okay. So
All
is
in
that,
favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. So approval of the minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the June 7th. Are those dates correct, Derek?
Yes.
June 7th, 2022, and June 21st, 2022 meetings.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for, what was it,
June 7th
June 7th, and what was the other one?
and the 21st.
And the 21st.
Yeah. So moved by Commissioner Lowe, seconded by Commissioner Gutierrez, and it has been Motion has carried.
Did you vote?
Not yet. Now we will vote.
what's that?
So he's called for the vote on the,
Call for the vote on the
Minutes.
last motion, approval of minutes.
Aye.
Aye.
Yep.
So no roll call?
All right.
Aye. All in favor, say aye.
Yep.
All opposed? Motion carried. It's now time for the public hearing portion of our meeting. Good evening and welcome. I will turn things briefly over to our staff host. We'll go over the ground rules for tonight's hearing.
here are the ground rules for tonight's hybrid hearing. In person, public testimony will be divided in two groups, for and against / neutral. So for is one group, and then against / neutral is another. They will be called upon to speak during their allotted in-person public testimony section, giving their name for the audio record and position on the proposal. Call-in public testimony will be called upon individually during the call-in public testimony portion of the hearing, giving their name for the audio record as well as if they are in favor, neutral, or against the proposal. Please mute audio when not speaking for those that are calling in. Emailed comments received during the public hearing will be read into the record by staff after the call-in public testimony section of the hearing. All comments and questions shall be addressed to the Planning Commission and should be relevant to the application and not be of a personal nature. Each speaker shall have 5 minutes to provide testimony and shall speak into the microphone. Please avoid repetitive comments. If there are a large number of speakers who are part of a group or organization, please select a representative to speak on behalf of the group. Behavior such as clapping, booing, hissing, or remarks is prohibited. Every citizen here tonight should have opportunity to testify without such distractions.
Thank you, Derek. Are there any questions regarding the public hearing ground rules? Seeing none, turning for a moment to our commission members. Let's keep in mind that we are prohibited by law from communicating with members of the public or on the subject matter of these hearings, except in these hearings. We also may not participate in a decision in which there is an appearance of conflict of interest to the average person. So let's take a minute to consider as to the matters which are before us for hearing today. Whether we had any ex parte communications, whether we have any ownership interest in the properties, whether we have any business dealings with proponents or opponents of the matters, or whether we have business associates or immediate family who may be either benefited or harmed by a decision in these matters. Are there any commission members who have a declaration at this time regarding any of the items on the agenda? Let the record show that there were no declarations. Is there anyone in the audience this evening, who would object to any commission member hearing any of the items on the agenda? Let the record show there were no objections. The order of the hearing shall be as follows. 1, planning staff shall provide a staff report. The commission may ask questions of staff. 2, the applicant or applicant's representatives presentation. In-person public testimony for, against, or neutral regarding the project. Call-in public testimony for, against, or neutral regarding the project. Email public testimony for, against, or neutral regarding the project to be read into the record by staff. Number 6, final staff comments, clarification of public statements that occurred during the testimony portion of the public hearing. Number 8, close the public hearing and planning commission discussion of the proposed action. Are there any procedural questions before we begin the public hearing? Seeing none, item number 1 is a public hearing for file CUP 2022-03/SEPA 2022-13. It's a proposal for a deviation of accessory structure standards in the suburban RS40 zone Applicant seeks to deviate from the following Franklin County Code FCC 17.26.050F2 regarding accessory structure roof height limit. Excuse me, I declare the public hearing for CUP 2022-03/SEPA 2022-13 to be open. Time is 7:11.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is CUP 2022-03, conditional use permit seeking a height deviation on an accessory structure. The address is 11812 Pheasant Run Road, Pasco, Washington. Parcel number 126150233. The zoning is RS40, and the comp plan has a low-density residential designation. It is within the city of Pasco urban growth area. The property is located south of Pheasant Run Road, east of Quail Bluff Lane, north of Quail Run Road, and west of Dent Road. As mentioned, it's a request to seek a deviation of the height limitation of 18 foot as measured from the midpoint of the roof. Area to be used is 3,500 square feet. And the property size is 1.16 acres. So that's the property right there. There's a close-up. This is the site map. And that's the proposed location of the accessory structure. Accessory photos. When we went out to post the sign, and there's the sign. These are floor plans for the structure. So there's a loft area or a mezzanine. There's different ways of defining that, but the second floor does not project across the entirety. The shop bay or the garage is actually approximately 2 stories at that, where the vehicles would be. On or about May 26, 2022, staff sent notices to technical agents, property owners within 500 feet to Franklin County Graphic. We also posted a pending land use action sign and entered the SEPA determination of non-significance into the SEPA registry number 2022-02638. Staff received 4 comments from 3 households in opposition to the proposed accessory structure. Comments received mentioned the structure is in violation of their neighborhood covenants, conditions, and restrictions. The county itself does not enforce CC&Rs. Those are contracts between landowners who have all agreed to a certain set of standards, and that's a civil matter handled between landowners in that, either an HOA or in that subdivision that has the CC&Rs. It is not something the county enforces, so sometimes, or actually not uncommonly, CC&Rs are more strict than, say, the county regulations. One of the things we always tell people before you make a proposal, check on your CC&Rs to make sure that you're not violating anything. If that's determined that it is, that's between them and the neighbors. We don't get involved in that. It's a civil matter. Rules applicable to accessory structures contained in the RS40 zoning district, then the fire code, as well as use regulations 17.66 040 specifically. Accessory structure meets most of the conditions laid out in the codes. As shown there, the proposed structure has a similar color and type of material matching the primary structure. That involves what we call the 1680 rule. Any accessory structure larger than 1,680 square feet must match material and color of the primary structure. And then they're also limited based on the square footage of the house roof line as to how many square feet of area can be covered in a permitted accessory structure. Finally, they're limited to 2. So in this case, mathematics works out that they're permitted up to 4,315 square foot. Their current structure, I think, was, darn it, now I don't remember, it was 3,000 something. But point is they're under their maximum. They actually still have some area left over. Now, you're also limited by your setbacks and stuff like that, so it's not willy-nilly, but they could potentially build up to another 1,200 square foot structure in theory on the property. Meets the enhanced setback requirements, and it does not exceed the footprint size, as I just mentioned. So the midpoint roof height is approximately 20 feet, which is 2 feet above the threshold. The overall roof peak height is approximately 23 feet. Generally speaking, when you're looking at an accessory structure, 18 foot as measured from the midpoint of the roof is usually going to fall somewhere. It's going to be over 20 feet, but not usually much more than 21 feet. So they're about 2 foot over the average peak height of an allowed structure. Basically, based on previous, dating back to 2018, and we've had so basically it's a precedence thing. Other folks have applied for the same basic deviation. It's been granted. That sets precedence for staff as to when it comes to our recommendations. There's no violation except for the height deviation, and county code allows for a request or petition to the board through its conditional use permit to deviate from both the dimensional and the height allowances. So they've followed all those protocols. Others in the area have been approved. So hence, they're not doing anything that other folks haven't asked to be doing and have been approved for. We did receive comments from the following technical agencies: Public Works, Confederated Tribes, and Benton Franklin Health District. Suggested or recommended findings of fact is that the structure in the RS-40 is in accordance with the goals, policy of the development code, basically zoning, and applicable comprehensive plan. They're not just going forward, no. They have to go through some additional steps, but it's still these steps that they're taking, it is in compliance because they're going through the proper zoning process for a deviation request, which is called out in the zoning code. Will not adversely affect public infrastructure. It'll be having to match, it'll be similar in structural size to other structures in the area. The elevations out there are so deviating too that, you could have one that's 15 foot that's sitting up higher in theory because it's on a higher rise than other properties. So it should not have an issue with blending in with the surrounding buildings. It's not going to negatively impact the ability of any neighbors to do or enjoy their regular activities at a residential use. It's a residential use as well. If it does create noise, fumes, vibrations, dust, traffic, or flashing lights, it's not really the structure, it's the activities that are taking place in the structure, and that's when we would get a call to enforce. So the building itself wouldn't do anything different than any other garage out there or RV storage. The proposal will not endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare if located where proposed. I don't know if you noticed, but there are restrooms and things like that. They've got all that pre-approved with the septics and the water. It's all good. In addition to our standard CUP language, the building permit will be required. They'll have to ensure that they're not, violating the development standards of lot coverage. They'll need to meet their setbacks requirements or make modifications to the building to accommodate additional fire resistance. Wait, this one has a fire hydrant near it, doesn't it? Yeah, no, it doesn't. Never mind. Mixing it up with a different one. In accordance with FCC 17.28030A2, 2, double I, or 2 again, the accessory structure shall be compatible, as I mentioned, basically the 1680 rule. Pool permit. That's one thing, is that they'll need to get, they're working on a pool out there. Not sure exactly what happened with that, but it didn't get their final inspection. I think it was the gate. And then now we're at a kind of a point where it doesn't make much sense for them to install a bunch of stuff just to pull it out so they can build this building. So what'll happen is they'll have to have all of that done as part of the prior to final inspection or certificate of occupancy for the accessory structure. So they'll bring all that stuff, but recognizing cost savings and things like that, we're letting them kind of do them at the same time is our recommendation. And they'll be following inadvertent discovery plan considering it's a developed site. And they'll need to comply with Franklin County Public Works Department. Road approach permit is required. It's unlikely they'll need to do anything in addition, but anytime we hit a $25,000 cost threshold, it triggers that automatically as an opportunity for Public Works to review and inspect access to ensure that it meets requirements or it's not destroying our roads. Gravel to asphalt's never a good thing. And if there is because you end up chewing into the asphalt, and we don't want that happening to our roads. If that's going to occur, that transition needs to be on their property and under their maintenance. Any utility extension crossing Franklin County roads will be addressed at the time of application. And this is a suggested motion. Happy to answer any questions.
I get a question. You stated that the deviation from the height allowance was already approved for similar properties nearby. Is that in the urban growth area, or are you talking about within city limits around that neighborhood?
I only speak to items in unincorporated. I don't speak to what happens in the city. That's the city. It's their jurisdiction. But generally speaking, it's primarily things that are in the UGA. Is what in this area is what we're referencing usually. There are some areas that aren't in the UGA that were, and they got pulled out, so it depends on the specific properties, but it's right in that threshold or the transition area. In fact, the RS40 zone is kind of that, a transition zone, going from urban scale, smaller lots, then to half acre RS20, then to R40, which is 40,000 minimum, and then we move into 1 acre and 5 acre lots, and then 20 acre lots or more. So it's on the outer edge of our transition zone.
Derek, I got a question on that. See, you're talking about the overall height of the building, and we're talking about if it's in compliance as far as the elevations to the house, there's going to be some sort of a ridge line on the proposed building, right? Mm-hmm. So it'd be, that height is dictated by zoning, right? Or is that dictated by the surrounding buildings or the relative house?
No, the county code where we have standards or limits, states you're permitted by right to build a structure, an accessory structure, that is 18 foot as measured from the midpoint of the roof. That measurement line comes from the distance, equal distance between the top plate and the peak.
Oh, so you're
But-
talking about the midpoint on the.
Literally
the hypotenuse
on
of that
the,
angle.
on the roof.
Right, so
yeah.
basically you're coming up the.
So your
like the-
actual structure height
The
is
rafter.
generally, the peak,
Yeah, right,
the peak of the gable
Yeah.
is usually, on an 18, is usually somewhere between 20 and 21 foot.
so you're adding for that, going from the midpoint, going up when you say overall height, will grow by whatever the half distance of that gable is,
Correct.
right?
Yeah, so in this case, the overall peak was, if I recall correctly, 23 foot,
Mm-hmm,
with the midpoint measurement around 20 foot. So they're seeking a 2-foot deviation on that height limit.
so it sounds like that they can be compliant as far as, permit applications, all the elevations, engineering, because a building that size is gonna have to be engineered, of course. Not to mention the design details are all there. It sounds like they can move through the county as far as compliance, but yet they're still gonna have to meet the CCNRs and to go through the architectural committee with the HOA. And that's what you're saying, that's their deal. So they could come, theoretically get a permit, not be able to put the thing up.
Again, as I've mentioned before, on conditional use permits, a conditional use permit is permission to proceed with a concept. It doesn't mean that an applicant's going to necessarily be able to meet all the conditions or requirements associated with that approval. Conditional use permits are permission to proceed with a concept is really the best way I like to say. Basically, we're saying you're seeking a deviation in height. That's the issue that's being contemplated, because they're permitted by right to build an accessory structure, because they don't have any out there yet. If they had two, be a whole different discussion. They have none right now. So that's whether or not they can afford to do it, whether or not, that's also why there's a set time where they must commence within a certain amount of time. I think it's 6 months, if I remember right.
You get a year on a permit, don't you?
I'm talking about for the conditional use permit.
Oh, okay, sorry.
You have actually, yeah, you have a year on a building permit. Well, you have, it starts getting weird too. 6 months, 12 months, 2 years.
Right.
Extensions and various other things can come into play there.
COVID and everything else going on.
But they're just, the conditional use permit is permission to proceed. It does not say, and it's not our job or duty to review their finances to determine whether they can afford it. To determine whether or not, they're building it the way, that's not this purview. That's my building department's job. They'll say whether or not it's being built appropriately. Yeah, exactly. CCNRs, that's a legal matter between them and their their neighbors.
You could give their neighbors an HOA, and they'll look at it, and some will like it, and some won't, and go from there.
That's kind of
That's
why
what
we
they-
don't get involved in CCNRs, and they're different in every neighborhood,
Yep.
And some CCNRs will go as far as making sure that even your block fence is the same color as your neighbor. If you want to deviate and do a different color, if you want to do a brown, but your CCNRs are requiring a gray tone, you have to stick with that gray tone. And then the battle becomes between you, the residents of the CCNR, and their legal team if you want to change that. So I realize that a lot of the times it's a legal battle going up against them. So, I mean, I completely understand what you're talking about.
Well, it's relative, it's rampant all the way across the country as far as legality. I mean, some CCNRs are like, not the cops, neighborhood cops, riding around on their golf carts and looking for a house that doesn't look like it's painted the right color.
Well, see, and that's what I was gonna say, like he said, well, what is gray tone? Well, gray tone to me and gray tone to you may be two different things, and that's why we just,
Exactly, we're in two different
we try to
neighborhoods.
stay very out
Yeah.
of anything that could be potentially
Oh, yeah.
subjective or anything like that. We have our own things we need to worry about under county code, and if folks wanna add and then, they're notified of this when they buy the property, and if they make that choice, that's between them and again, the surrounding, and we just don't get involved in CCNRs.
I don't blame you.
Any other questions?
So any other questions from any other commissioners about this? All righty, seeing none, does the applicant or the applicant's representative wish to speak? In person,
I don't think we have anything to add. I think we agree with kind of what you guys have laid out there.
Okay.
okay, so in-person public testimony for, against, or neutral regarding the project, if any. I think that pretty much covers it. Call-in public testimony for, against, or neutral regarding the project, if any.
Nope.
None? Email public testimony for, against, or neutral regarding the project, if any.
Nope.
None? Does staff have any final comments?
Nope.
Is there any clarification of public statements needed by anyone from the audience? Seeing none, public testimony portion, the testimony portion of the public hearing for CUP 2022-03/SEPA 2022-13 is closed. Okay, so is there any discussion among the planning commission prior to entertaining a motion? Well, okay, I guess we're good to go. I would entertain a motion.
I'll do it. I move that the Franklin County Planning Commission recommend that the Board of County Commissioners adopt the 6 findings of fact and 9 conditions of approval detailed in the staff report and approve case file CUP 2022-03.
Second?
I'll second.
All righty, so Commissioner Knifton moved and Commissioner Lowe seconded that we forward to the Board of Commissioners a recommendation of approval for CUP 2022-03/SEPA 2022-13 with the 6 adopted findings of fact and 9 conditions of approval. Is there any discussion? May we have a roll call, please?
Mike Vincent,
Yes.
Layden Lowe,
Yes.
Stacy Knifton,
Yes.
Manny Gutierrez,
Yes.
Peter Harpster,
Yes.
Peter, you there?
Yes.
Is he on mute?
Can you hear me?
I don't know. He was here.
I'm not muted. Can you hear me now?
Peter, if you're there, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? I haven't been muted. Hello? Can you hear me?
Derek, I can hear him. Can you hear
Jan, are
me?
you still there?
Yeah, can you hear me? I think they're having
Is
mic issues
everybody
on
the
their end.
phone?
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, so I'm not hearing Jen hasn't sent an email or Peter or anybody saying they've lost connection.
They can hear us, but we can't hear, she just texted me.
Can you hear us now, Derek?
but we can't hear you. You can hear me, but we can't hear you. Is that phone on mute,
Okay.
mute or anything?
No, it's probably, could be the system acting up.
Did you just vote for it? I'm texting Derek.
I
can pass on
did,
your
yeah,
vote.
I just, yeah, I did.
So- Okay, I will pass
Okay.
it on.
Sounds good. I just texted Ryan as well.
But I don't understand why we can't hear them calling in. I'm not asking you, I'm just. I mean, I don't even hear the phone. You're sure that that phone has not been turned off?
I haven't touched the phone.
Yeah.
And
And
where'd Lewis go? Or
Yeah. Julio left
Julio, no.
about 20 minutes ago.
Of course, okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
I stuck
Peter,
around to see if it was working and then.
Peter just said that Jen and him can talk to each other and can hear everything, but
Yeah,
we can't hear them.
she just, I've got a text conversation going as well. We can hear you. You voted in favor. I said, we do not hear you. And she goes, yeah, I know. I realize that I shouldn't be having text. The public doesn't know. Can you guys say something?
Can you hear me?
So strange.
Can you hear us, Derek?
Hello? Hello. All right.
I don't think that thing's on mute either, so.
Now, I just definitely turned it up. So there's some reason it is not communicating back. And this is why we're switching to new systems, I think.
Oh,
They're
the
gonna-
motion has been approved.
Yes. She's just asked if she wants us to try to call back. I've responded yes. So let's see if that resets the connection.
Okay. Next one.
But we've got the, well, you shouldn't have to do anything, Aaron. You should just call in.
Oh,
They would just hang up and call in.
That approves that motion though, right?
Yeah, that's already,
Finishes item
that's,
two,
that's,
or item one.
yeah. We had 4 anyways.
You're right.
And then Peters was a 5th. We only needed 4.
Yeah.
So, and he voted. I've got a text, he's got a text. And I read that vote into the
Can you
record.
guys hear me now?
Should we move on to item number 2?
Mhm.
Okay.
Because they can hear us, they can hear everything. They're observing the meeting. They
Hey.
just can't, for some reason,
Hey,
respond
Derek,
to
can you
us.
hear me now?
These things are on here.
Yeah, Jen, I just hung up and redialed in.
Red
I
light
don't think that's working.
Okay. They can't hear us. All right.
Here, right?
No. you
No,
turn that on.
anything.
How do you do that?
You just push it.
This? Is that on? Oh, it is on.
Yeah, then tap it.
Feels so. Gotcha. Thanks.
If the red light's on, you're
It's
alive.
on, yeah, it's. Well, I guess we're on.
All right,
Okay, item number
Derek,
2
can you hear us?
is a public hearing for file ZC 2022-02/SEPA 2022-14 is a proposal to rezone one parcel comprising approximately 6.22 acres from the current designation of Rural Community 1, RC1, to General Industrial, I2. The land has a comprehensive planned land use designation of rural settlement.
hold on a second real quick.
Okay.
Jen, if you can hear me, say something
Yeah,
so I can check.
can you hear us? Derek, can you hear us?
Yep, still not working. Well, at least you can hear us. We will proceed. We have 4 here plus Peter. Peter can just communicate via text. I'm gonna have to download my phone and I'll talk to somebody about what we do with texts during a hearing.
Send the text to your email and then email everybody else.
Yeah,
You could always just shoot an email.
yeah,
or
we'll worry about it later. Oh,
All right.
she's telling, just kidding. I got 4 people telling me how to do this. Awesome. All right, will do. We will get these texts as part of the record.
Sounds good. I declare the public hearing for ZC 2022-02/SEPA 2022-14 to be open. Time is 7:41 PM. May we have staff present the staff report, please?
Yes, I got a little flustered, sorry. Hey, as mentioned, this is a zone change request. It's for the South Columbia Irrigation District. It's supposed to be South Columbia Basin Irrigation District. Skibbit. Anyways. Yes, it's parcel number 123491025, 60 Lateral Drive, Eltopia, Washington. And this is in what we call Eltopia. It's not in the fringe. It's well, you'll see in the map in a minute. Property is generally located east, north of School Road and west-south. That's an interesting way of putting that, but of Eltopia West Road. Comp plan designation is rural settlement. Property size is 6.22 acres. Current zoning is rural community 1, RC1. And the request is to change the current zoning designation from rural community 1 to general industrial I2. And that is the property. It's a very interesting shaped property. This is an existing, isn't this your facility? Yeah, so this is existing Skibbit. They've acquired this property, or at least access to it, to use it, because I think the Bureau actually bought it, but regardless, they want to use this for, in the future, for storage and other equipment as well, equipment storage yard. Hence the request for the I2 as opposed to a C2. The C2, these proposed uses for this property would require a CUP each time they did an expansion, potentially, whereas under I2, they're permitted by right. So that's their current property, or the C2 zone. And then this is the property in question. These are site photos. Not much out there. Well, I don't think your church is in this picture, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, it is?
It's way out there on the left.
Oh, okay, it's on, oh, there it is, to the left of the sign. All right, there I see it. I thought that was a hillside, sorry. So on or about May 26, 2022, staff sent notices to technical agencies, property owners within 500 feet and posted in the Franklin County Graphic. We also posted the site with a pending land use action sign and entered the SEPA determination of non-significance into the registry. It's number 202202637. Franklin County Comp Plan, use map, guides development of lands within unincorporated areas of the county. All zone change activities are to be guided by that comp plan. This is what's weird about these rural settlement, or what we call LAMRDs, because whereas in the rest of the world, if you were trying to do this type of a change, say like in the AP 20 zones or the RR1s or anything like that, they would have to go through a comp plan change as well. However, Eltopia, Basin City, Merle's Corner, there's a few other ones out there. They're lammards of a different type that have a defined area. It's a box. And that box, anything in that basically says this is the boundaries of the lammard, and they're envisioned to have different types of zoning and uses. So you don't have to go through a comp plan change to do a rezone, what we will in this case call it, going from residential to commercial or residential to industrial, because under the comp plan designation for that lammard, all those uses are potentially allowed within the zone. They have to go through a process, a public process, but they don't have to go through a comp plan. So the zoning's allowed, different types of zonings are allowed in those lammards, whereas in the AP 20, it's AP 20. And as long as you're just trying to change density, then, I don't know why you do it, but going from AP 20 to AP 40, but that's an ag use. In the RR zones or the RC zones, those are residential. You can go from 1 to 5, back and forth, and this and that in the shoreline development area, but you can't in the lammards, the 5-acre segs and things like that. Those are 5 acres. They can't be rezones. It's a different type of lammard. You have type 1s and you have type 2s. So Eltopia is really, it used to be a city or a town at the time of their, when they had a choice between either staying incorporated like Mesa, Colotis, and Connell. They chose not to, and they disincorporated, so they became part of Franklin County. But that's why Eltopia used to have its own schools and all that other stuff, but they don't have any of those services anymore. It's not a city anymore. It's a more what they call a postal address. But anyways, so that's why staff didn't say, no, you can't do this or anything like that. You have to go through a comp plan, because in this circumstance, you don't necessarily have to go through a comp plan to change the zoning use type. So that's what I just explained with the rural settlement. And, it is adjacent to a C2, an industrial site technically, because that's they're one of their facilities there, so they're already operating kind of industrial or service types in activities at that site. The minimum lot size is RC1 is 1 acre. There is no minimum lot size, so it does allow the landowner to have more flexibility with the property if at a later date they decided to chunk off pieces or something like that. It is consistent with the comp plan, but it will be allowing for a more intensive use of the property should they sell it off to somebody else or something like that. This property has full rights of I-2. So, unless, well, yeah, basically that's what the proposal is. Okay, so a rezone result in a change in development patterns of the land, going from 1 acre minimum residential primary use to a potential industrial use. Furthermore, the primary permitted use in the I-2 zone include a lot more permitted uses than the RC1. The RC1 allows for single-family dwelling, farming, and ag product stands. It's very limited what you're allowed to do. On the I-2, it's pretty much the opposite. There's not a lot you're not permitted to do, especially if you go for a conditional use permit. It's pretty wide open palette. That said, the proposed use for the rezone is similar to what's already going on to the north and on surrounding properties. That's, you have industrial zone properties located near the railroad tracks. It's not the only I-2 zone property in the area, but they are very limited. There's only little pockets. According to FCC 1754-010, I-2 district is to preserve areas for industrial and related uses. Eltopia and these types of landmarks do have an expectation of a combination of, but generally in the I-2 zone, it's ag-related. Now, obviously, Skibbit is somewhat ag-related, considering they provide irrigation to most of the area out there. It could almost be viewed as a public utility site as well. It's, no, I don't think I have specifically in my stuff irrigation, but I do have ag uses, ag services. There, all of these things are permitted with a conditional use in the RC1 zones. This type of a use, and also in the C2 zones, and then obviously in the I2 as well. It's just that in the I2, they don't have to go through a conditional use permit to use the property as they intend to use it. It's a rural settlement, small crossroads, business center, and provides housing convenience and services to residents in the area. Designation provides for the infill development and redevelopment of lands with the intention that this area be a mixture of residential, commercial, and industrial. See, and this is why in this application and in this specific zone, this meets with the intent of the comp plan. And then this is kind of articulating what I was just talking about with the box around it. That's the LOB, or logical outer boundary. A lot of that is still AP20 right on the edges, but all of that could be at applicant or landowner request converted to different zones potentially. Expansion of that box does take a comprehensive plan amendment and is nearly impossible to get. You would, as things currently stand now, staff does not see a need for that based on the number of properties and locations that we still have to expand into. So because we already have it existing, staff would not be recommending any changes to any of the landmarks. Because
That's where you said, like, I had to push it up against AP20 or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
So we received no public comments. We received comments from the following agencies. At this time, it's a rezone request, so there's no actual activity on the site that would trigger a need for any sort of archaeological studies at this time. So these are the findings of fact criteria for the Planning Commission. Render a recommendation to approve with modifications and/or conditions, or reject. So, and you're, of course, checking to make sure that it meets these requirements here. Number E is whether or not you think there should be some sort of concomitant agreement. Staff does not believe that that's necessary for this proposed site.
Can you explain what concomitant means?
Okay. It's basically the landowner, it's often in other jurisdictions called a developer agreement. So what it is the landowner says, let's say we were doing I don't know how you would apply a concomitant agreement here exactly. in this particular use, but like say, I've got RC5 zone land, I want an RC1 designation, but recognizing that all the other lots are 5 acres, I'm doing a concomitant agreement that states, with this rezone, I will only do 2 acre lots. That'll be the smallest size. So it's them volunteering to limit themselves, or basically as a condition of approval, they would need to do that, which is why you almost never see us recommend them. If they want to commit to that on their own, that's something we can build into the recommendations and stuff. But RC1, 1 acre lots, man. You know, staff will not generally, except, I can't say we would never, but we will generally not recommend limiting a landowner's use of their property. But if they want to do it, and they come to us with a 2 acre proposal in an RC1 zone, then we're going to be like, yep, you know, we support that too. But we're not going to generally require that. And like I said, in this case, because of the current owner and things like that, I just don't see it being I don't know what you would be seeking to limit or have them deviated on or conditioned on.
Does it usually go the other way as far as that agreement, say RC5 to say 2.5 acre lots, something like that?
No, because those are minimum. Remember, the zone, the 5 is a 5 acre minimum.
Okay, so it'd be an RC1 where the developer got together and say, okay, we're gonna go 2.2 or 2.5
Yep.
acres
Yep.
on the thing in that area.
But that's going to be generally on the landowner or the developer
Right.
to make that commitment.
Yeah, but,
Now, if they come in and say, this is how we're going to do it, we're going to hold them to that.
right.
And they may do that to keep the neighbors happy around them. You know, say, hey, RC1 is the zone, but I'm gonna keep it at 2 just to make everybody happy. But it also keeps the guy from selling the 2 acre lot and then breaking it into 1.
Well, once it's legally registered and everything, it's gonna be on a deed title at that point. I mean, there's no going back.
You talking about a concomitant agreement?
Well, I'm talking about the formulation of this development that has it, say, 2.5 acre lots.
Okay, but that's not what we're talking about here.
He was just
I just saying
giving
that
an example of what a
the analogy between going RC1, or say RC1 to RC larger is more applicable
Yes.
than going the other direction.
Right,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah, you can't through a concomitant agreement go below the minimum
Right.
lot size. You can only limit that's what it is. It's a condition above and beyond, usually. Or maybe it'll be like, yeah, we'll do it, but you gotta build a park. You know, these types of things.
I'm just saying the framework for that development, I mean, it fleshed itself out in the plan. And it stays that way, it's recorded, and that's what you guys approve going
Correct.
forward. It isn't
Yeah.
like, well, here's plan A and plan B, because it's a
Well, what
legal
it does,
document.
it's what Commissioner Lowe stated, or I think he said it. It prevents me from coming later, buying a
Right.
2 acre lot in an RC1 zone, and then going, I wanna subdivide this into 1 acre lots.
Exactly.
Nope.
Yeah.
You're
exactly.
notified at the time you
So if they
acquire the
commit to the
property that,
agreement with the county,
that's
then
what
the
you
Yeah,
county-
so it's a done deal then, and no going back to anything else.
correct.
Okay.
So suggested findings of fact, it is in accordance with the goals, policies of the comp plan, as we've discussed. Whoa, apparently getting a little too excited there. It will not be material detrimental. Specific uses might, but the actual rezone isn't. Some uses may disturb folks, depending on what gets located in an I2 zone. There is merit and value. Skibit is a primary utility provider through irrigation. They have need of the property where their expansion of activity or so there, I would say that, you know, staff does believe there's merit in their proposal. It also can save us time later in the future if they have a need out there to do something, not having to come back for a conditional use permit or something like that, and just being allowed to go about their business. Obviously, there are controls in place. We get complaints from landowners and various other things, or they're putting up lights that are like, football stadium on all the houses. These types of things, we would still have the authority and the ability to,
Yeah, so like if an
Quash.
asphalt plant went up overnight or something.
right,
Yeah, I mean, it's spewing,
unless there's a reason for it.
right.
There may be a reason that an asphalt plant shows up there
yeah.
because they're doing the roads, but yeah, so don't think that they're just get to go out there and be all willy-nilly. There's still codes and things that they'll have
Well, I
to
just
do.
think, you said.
They may also have to put up screening,
Complaints, but usually that's not gonna come from a facility like Skibbit
most likely not.
either. I mean, but if you have,
That
let's
mostly
say,
comes under code enforcement instead of land use.
all right.
That's what I'm saying, yeah, we, code enforcement would deal with those circumstances.
And if you had, had a situation with exhausting, whatever into the air.
Right.
which and all that, but with
Yeah.
these guys, it's a different, just storage.
So any future development to comply with, this is our standard rezone, because at this point, it's the rezone. It's the time of specific application that the real details come out as to what's going to be happening. And again, some uses may require that we set conditions or something above and beyond what are necessarily there. Generally, even in the I2 zone, if there's an activity that has a history or by its nature is likely to disturb, they still need to go through a conditional use permit. So, it's not like you can just open up a slaughterhouse there. No, you gotta go through, plus I don't think it's big enough, but that's beside the point. So, it's just for their needed uses, that won't be triggering, but a lot of the uses in the I2 will require conditional use permits. It's just they allow a lot more. Future development shall comply with local, state, and federal agency standards. They would like a cultural resource, but that, again, will come out at the time of development. There will be a requirement for an approach permit. And again, just like last one, any utility extension crossing Franklin County roads will be addressed at the time of application. And this is staff's recommended motion. And happy to answer any questions.
Okay, great. Thank you, Derek. Does any commissioner have any questions this time? Does the applicant or applicant's representative wish to speak?
I have no specific comments for y'all. If you have any questions, I'm more than willing to answer them, but
Okay. So in-person public testimony for, against, or neutral regarding the project? None. Call in public testimony for, against, or neutral regarding the project? Seeing none. Email public testimony for, against, or neutral regarding the project? None. Does staff have any final comments?
No.
No. Is there any clarification of public statements needed by anyone from the audience?
Can I just ask, do I need to get somewhere?
Sure.
Esther Sanders, Eltopia United Church of Christ. It's adjacent to this land. So as I understand what's been presented, if there were any buildings being proposed, that would be an additional permit that would be
Correct.
granted?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
There's permitted buildings, and those would they'd have to get a building permit. And then, but there's most of their activities are only going to trigger a need for a building permit. If they go big enough with a structure, it may trigger a SEPA, things like that. However, if like say they sell off the south 2 acres, some of those uses, depending on the buyer and whatnot, a lot of those uses would trigger also a conditional use permit, a process similar to what you saw earlier. So they'd have to come in, petition for that use. Conditions may or may not be assigned above and beyond normal ones, depending on the specific use proposed, so.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, is there any discussion? Well, the public testimony portion of the public hearing for ZC 2022-02/SEPA 2022-14 is closed. Is there any discussion amongst the planning commission prior to entertaining a motion? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I move to forward CZ 2022-02 to the Board of County Commissioners, a positive recommendation with 5 findings of fact and 4 conditions of approval as provided for in the staff report.
A second?
Second.
Second, okay, great. So moved by Manny Gutierrez and seconded by Stacy Knifton, that we forward to the Board of Commissioners a recommendation of approval for ZC 2022-02/SEPA 2022-14 with the 5 adopted findings of fact and 4 conditions of approval. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, may we have a roll call, please?
Mike Vincent,
Yes.
Layden Lowe,
Yes.
Stacy Knifton,
Yes.
Manny Gutierrez.
Yes.
I received a text message from Peter stating that he votes yes on this proposal.
Thank you.
The motion has been approved.
All righty. Motion has been approved. Public comment, is there a member of the audience who wants to comment on items not listed on the agenda? Administrative items, update on past items sent to VOCC for approval.
Yes, the Underwood rezone was approved. Is that last week or 2 weeks ago? I think that this is the 12th.
Yeah, last week.
Yeah, so that was approved. What else did I take? There was a second item. Ergon, the asphalt plant. CUP was approved as well. Can't think of, pretty much, I'm trying to remember what's left. There's not much left. I think we're about caught up with
What
items.
about Pomona?
Pomona River, yes, Rivercrest was approved.
Oh, okay.
The 20 lot, that little 20 lot subdivision. Spencer's 4 was approved. However, so remember we had the big Spencer 4 half acre lot, and that was approved last year. And then they came back and they broke it into pieces because, well, now they're going back to the original because they were able to come to terms with the city for providing water. So there was some question about, do we have to go through this again? But there's nothing under state law that, you could go in and you could go for 14 different subdivision proposals on a property. And as long as you don't start on any of them, you would be able to theoretically pick them. Just nobody does that. So it was nothing in the amended version repealed the original. So effectively, they got approval for 2 different styles.
So one didn't cancel out the other one.
Yeah, they don't cancel it. It was options.
Right.
So they could either go forward with this one and doing that way. Now, they did end up recording the short plat for the 5 acres along the side, but that doesn't matter because it just becomes incorporated into the overall subdivision. And you're allowed to re-subdivide as long as you go through the subdivision process. So they've done all that. So Yep, so that one is going, you won't see it because you've already seen it twice. But they're going to the old version, which is more in line with the surrounding neighborhoods as well. Everything up to that point is a half acre, so. And this goes pretty much to the shoreline.
Sounds
along
good.
Burns Road. So. And that's about it for me right now.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead and, planning commission meeting is adjourned.